What's going on, cultivators? What I want to do is I want to talk about how to launch a successful Kickstarter campaign at minimal cost. My name is Zachary Delano Middleton. I am an author and the owner of Grace to Cultivate. This is a behind-the-scenes look at an inexpensive company called Grace to Cultivate. It's a series that do on social media, and the goal of the series is I want other aspiring entrepreneurs, dreamers, builders, that sort of thing, to be able to see how to build a company like this from, I would say from scratch, but I believe that in the whole concept of Grace to Cultivate is that the Triune Guide and many other people have invested deeply into our lives so we can invest in others. And so a lot of our digital content is around that construct, if you will. This particular focus, when we talk about fundraising, is just something we don't learn in school. This is something that is very important and needed specifically for those who are building. I'm an African American, and I'm talking about also communities of color. Sometimes in communities of color, this is just not a normal conversation that we have, but I think it's a very important conversation. And hopefully, I can try to transition those or give those steps to others, and that's what this is all about. And so, and of course, a way to give digital content as a part of our marketing. Anything that's done for a for-profit standpoint is somewhat of a form of marketing as well. And so let's go to the next slide. So one of the ways that you can help this brand grow, check us out, like, share, subscribe. That's one of the best ways that you can help us. Go to our website, which is gracetocultivate.com. I believe the last screen is going to show you that, but Grace to Cultivate along all other social media platforms. Feel free to buy any content from us as well, but really help us grow in those ways: like, share, subscribe. All right, so we're going to be talking about a Kickstarter campaign. This can be applied to other types of digital campaigns and digital campaigns that are similar, but I use Kickstarter, and so I'll just share that particular process. Just to give a few of the statistics from this particular Kickstarter. This was done to raise startup capital. My first year of business in 2021, September, we were able to raise over $3,000. $3,150 was the approximate number with 40 backers. The amount that was on the actual campaign or on the screen was 35 backers, an amount of 2,177. The actual goal was 2,000, so we eclipsed that goal both digitally, but even there are some people who would like to give off of the digital platform because they know Kickstarter and others will take a cut or percentage. And so there are some people who will give in excess of that, but they would prefer to do it in person. And that number came to roughly 3,150. Also, this will be a step-by-step process. So I'm going to do it in 12 steps. Feel free to go back through this particular video if you have any questions, or reach out to me at zach@gracetocultivate.com if you have any questions. All right, so first step is to remember that you are ultimately not your fundraiser. I always state my perspective, where I'm coming from. Some would say state your bias. My perspective is that I am a Christian, and I believe that the Triune God created every person in the Imago Dei, in the image of God. And I believe that my ultimate value is not tied to how other people see me or my achievements or what have you, but ultimately how God sees me. And so that understanding is very important for me as I'm seeking to understand that my work is not ultimate. My things that are ultimate, or the achievement of fundraising, not what is ultimate, but that ultimately it's or the fundraising is what I'm doing and not who I am. If that makes any sense. And so I think understanding that is key. Whether you raise $1 million or one penny, is all good. You're not less of a person by not hitting your goal. And so ultimately, you are not your fundraiser. Okay. Number two, the majority of the fundraiser happens behind the scenes. One of the things, I have a lot of good friends who do fundraising in a lot of different areas, and one of the misconceptions that sometimes arises is I may see someone else post something on their Facebook or their social media account, and I assume, oh, okay, that's all you have to do. You post, and for some people that is the case. But I can only speak for myself, and I can speak definitely as a person who's representative of the African American community and just communities of color in general. And sometimes because these type of lessons that you're engaging and interacting aren't normal, the construct around giving towards even startup capital and different fundraising just aren't normal, and so sometimes it takes a little some conversations that are not front and center, that are not on display, happen in order to raise those funds. And so the metaphor, or the analogy I use, is that what you see on the digital scoreboard, if you will, or the digital website, the fundraising website, is like a scoreboard, right? But the actual plays, the actual strategy, and I use the analogy of practices and conditioning and recruitment. All of those things are happening. That will be steps 1 through 12 that I'm sharing today. And those particular steps are what I would say are what are the behind the scenes work that go into any type of fundraiser. And so the majority of the fundraiser happens behind the scenes. That's number 2. Number 3 is uh, it's helpful to reverse engineer your fundraising goals. So I would start there by reverse engineering my fundraising goals. So what does that look like? So I would start with, if my goal is 2,000, I understand that everything I'm working in the opposite direction. What do I need to do in order to get back to 2,000? I would even encourage you to overraise a little bit, or to consider having a work ethic goal, which you're working towards, and a stated goal. So my stated goal is 2,000. My work ethic goal is 2,500, 3,000. I'm trying to kind of overraise or overshoot it to a certain degree in terms of my effort, the work ethic that I'm putting into it. And so my minimum goal is my stated and my promoted goal. However, my work ethic goal goes above that number. And so if I'm at 1,000, I'm planning and I'm working towards 1,500. 2,000, I'm planning and working towards 3,000. And so even if you fail in hitting your work ethic goal, you still hit with the goal that you have promoted and the goal that you're shooting for. And so just to kind of have that mindset in terms of your work ethic. Number 4, create a realistic per person goal based on the math. All right. And so what does that look like? All right. So for me, if a stranger, approached me about my fundraising and said, hey, I have this great project that I'm doing. You don't get any equity in it, but you could help me as I'm working towards whatever that is. What does that look like? What are you really going to come out of your pocket and give that person? Even if you love them, you respect them, what does that look like if you're not tied to it, or if it's not something where you have ownership in it? Like, how much are you really going to give to that? And so some people's numbers higher than others, right? And so for me, and I'll get to it, I have a kind of a mind or a number in my head of what that would look at, based upon the character, integrity, and the relationship I have with that person. Then I would also ask you to ask a realistic question based on your target audience. The people that you're going to be asking are the people, do they have the capacity? Have you known them to be givers of that magnitude, right? For something that's a unique and creative project. And so that's kind of how you kind of frame in your mind what that number looks like. For me, my per person goal was about $25. That I felt like if I would ask a complete stranger for my context, hey, would you be interested in giving in this project? You don't have equity in it, but I think you may want to see it grow and build. It was about $25 to get the total fundraising goal, the minimum goal of $2,000. That means I need to get at least 80 people to give me on average $25. About 80 people to give me on average $25. That's a realistic goal based on the math. All right, when I look at number 5, consider contacting at least 4 to 5 times your per person goal, right? And so we've established that our per person goal is 80 people. So 4 to 5 times is between 320 to 400 people is my contact goal, right? I have even found it helpful to include the per person goal in the ask, right? And so I have to give a shout out and respect to Ms. Tracy Warren of the Impact Movement. I did an internship there several years ago, and I do mine a little different than how Ms. Warren does her, but it's heavily influenced by that support raising process. And I do believe fundraising for ministry is different than fundraising in a lot of different other areas. But I do think that there are some transferable concepts that can be had when you're talking about asking people to give or to invest in something and give in general. But one of the things that I generally try to end my vision cast by saying, and influenced by her, is would you be interested in backing me at $25 or some other amount, right? Some people say you should say higher, some say lower, but for me, I actually say what that number is. I'm looking for 25 or some other amount. And that's kind of my ending, and I'm going to actually say that and verbalize that when I'm talking to that person. Number 6, create an individual contact list based on your actual acquaintances. Okay, what do I mean by that? I mean, who are the people when you pick up the phone, they're going to actually respond. They're going to actually talk to you. Who are those people that are actually going to interact with you once you talk to them? And that's kind of your actual kind of your true contact list. And that's how you're going to kind of prioritize that list based on the actual people that you can talk to, you can engage. If I know my number is 400, I would also say it's helpful to create just go on. I'm a big legal pad person, but just write on a sheet of paper. What are those 400 names? Who are those people? You can do it a blank sheet, legal pad, Google Docs, however. But who would take your call if you called them, and they would actually kind of give you a listening ear? And I think that that's a good starting point to look at the actual individual contact list. Number 7, I want you to write down your individual contact list on a document or a spreadsheet, right? Write down an individual contact list on a document or a spreadsheet. This is what mine looks like. Column 1 is the name, all the names. Column 2 is contact. How? Okay, so by contact, what I mean by that is how am I contacting them? Am I doing it phone? Am I doing it email? Am I doing it LinkedIn message? What is my contact method? Just to be able to track how I was able to talk to them. And then what happened, right? Did they give? Did they pledge? Did they decline? Did they tell you to call back on Friday? Did they give you a bad number? What actually transpired so you can have that for follow-up purposes? Last but not least, the reason why I like an Excel spreadsheet is it actually can track the numbers, right? So I can literally go, okay, I got 100 here, 250 here, 120 there, $30, and it'll tabulate that number for you, so you can get to that 2,000. And in your mind, you can actually know who's either pledged or who's even gotten to that point where you hit that 2,000 mark. And so that's something that I found to be very helpful, because where you have a scoreboard that everybody can see, which is the actual fundraiser, you have an internal scoreboard, if that makes any sense, with your giving amount and what that looks like. Next up, I would write a vision cast. That's about 300 words or less, that includes a direct link to your digital fundraiser. All right. And so I'll put this in the link, and I'll tie that link to my link tree, and I'll put it in a lot of different other places. But for the sake of posterity, I'll go ahead and read it and what that looks like. And so here's an example of a vision cast. What that looks like is, hey, ma'am, sir, or you want to insert their name. How are you doing? I'm just reaching out to see if you'd be interested in helping me launch my business called Grace to Cultivate LLC. Put the website in, gracetocultivate.com. We're an imagination brand that, from a posture of gratitude, use storytelling, ideation, and investment for the greater good. The through line of all of our products, services, and digital content is helping the next generation work smarter and not just harder. I also launched a Kickstarter to raise $2,000 in startup capital, or I just launched a Kickstarter to raise $2,000 in startup capital for this business before September 30th, 2021. My hope is to receive a patronage of 80 to 100 backers that will contribute $225 or some other amount toward the startup goal. This is a for-profit business, so a person is not donating as they would to a charity. Rather, any contribution would be like a payment for a product or service. The Kickstarter link includes an itemized list of the startup costs and a detailed description of how each contribution reward tier leads to a different outcome. Will you support this Kickstarter? If so, submit your pledge contribution here. This link includes a more detailed description of the campaign. And so I put the link actually in it, and I just say thanks for your consideration. And I think I found that to be a very helpful tool in the fundraising process. And part of the reason for the itemized list is that I found that some people can say, or they can ask, what is my money going to go to specifically? People ask that question, and so you can kind of prepare and plan by having that list. And I think Kickstarter has a good digital platform that allows you to do that really, really well. Number 9, think of inexpensive ways to thank your patrons. This is something that people don't always think about, but Kickstarter is an interesting platform because it literally will state, and I put it in the article, that they are not, that your patrons are not equity partners. Like they're not partnering and getting a part of your business. They are literally stating, hey, if you're going to do a thank you or thank you letter, or whatever type of thank you, that is a general kind of like a gift, a prize, if you will. And so the prize or the gift that you're going to be asking for, the ones that I found to be helpful were thank you cards, public support thank you. So social media shout outs were really cool. And so they kind of like that, and I just found some different places on Canva. The website I'm using right now is called canva.com. And I found different ways to just give them a digital, hey, appreciate you, shout out, or I tied it into their link and that sort of thing. And also another cool way to do it is, let's say, for example, you are offering a product or service. For me, it's a book at $15. I had one of my giving tiers to be like $100, and you can check it out through the link. Um, and I promised them a signed book, right? That book is $15. But if you give $100, man, you've easily, the gift easily exceeds what the value of the book is. And people enjoy that, right? And so we didn't give up equity, but those particular partners or partnerships, if you give a giving amount that's equal value to your product or services, that may be a way to kind of have a win-win, if that makes any sense, because you have someone to be exposed to your art or your content or whatever you're doing, but at the same time they're willing to invest in that. And the last tier, I think it was, I gave them, if they wanted to do a leadership workshop, which was around the same cost, based upon what was on the website. And so that was there. That's an inexpensive way to thank the patron. Number 10 is to launch the official Kickstarter. And so as you see, there were 9 steps prior to this place, right? And so for a lot of people, when they post it and they drop it, there's nothing wrong with that. But I would respectfully encourage them to think about the first 400 before launching. Have different contact strategies and people that you can engage and talk to before the actual first launch. And so now when the Kickstarter is launched, now you are picking up the phone and you're going for it, right? You are actually able to engage the group that is that everyone can see the Kickstarter now, but the actual work has begun for you in terms of contacting as many people as possible. All right, number 11. I use this term, maybe a little country, maybe a little whatever, but I call it boom clickety. Boom clickety. What does that mean? I grew up in the insurance office, and my parents, when you call somebody and you put it down, the old school phones, all you hear is boom click, boom click, boom click, right? And so boom click means execution. That I'm not just talking about reaching out to people. I'm not just saying, oh, this would be a good number. No. I'm literally calling each person, texting or LinkedIn messaging or whatever, each person, and the execution is what I call the boom clickety. And so that is what happens behind the scenes. It's not just what you see dropping in that particular link. It's phone calls, it's emails. A lot of times it's follow up, right? And so one of the things I encourage for anybody who's raising support is in the first 2 weeks or maybe a month. Let's say, for example, you have a campaign that's 3 months long. That first month, you want to talk to each person. The reason why is you want to give them an opportunity to have 2 or 3 pay periods and say, oh man, I will support you then. I will support you in blah, blah, blah. And it may take a month. It may take 2 weeks. It may take whatever. People have bills. People have other things on their mind. And so that 2-month time may be your follow-up time. Maybe say, hey, Zach, if I don't get back to you in 2 months, man, you can reach back out to me. I've heard that. And so that means that last 2 weeks or so, you're picking up the phone again. Maybe your second or your third or your fourth call, and you're actually saying, hey, remember that pledge that you had for, hey, would you mind? And it's a hard call, but it's an important call. But I say that first week, first 2 weeks, first month, that's when you're doing the bulk of that boom clickety. And you have that list of 400, and you're going through that list, and you're saying, okay, this person said they would give, this person said they would give, and you're just following up with that. And so it's execution, it's getting it done, it's shoe leather, it's grit, whatever you want to use, the term you want to use. But that's where the bulk of, I would say, the fundraising actually happens. Last but not least, you don't control the outcome of your fundraiser. You know what I mean? You don't control if you got one person. I mean, sometimes you'll have and this really happens. You will call someone and you ask for $25 and they say, oh, I got 1,000 for you, or I got the full amount, or whatever. You don't know. You may call 1,000 people and nobody gives 1 cent. It can happen too. But I do think that you can focus on the things that you can control, and I do encourage people to center their mind on the things that you can actually or center or focus your fundraising efforts and make sure that they're front and center, in the minds of your prospective patrons. And that's our 1 through 12. You can go through that if you want to look into that. And there's also a brief TikTok video that I'm included in the article and I recorded it right after the fundraiser that gives the lessons learned, right? So this is one of the preparation steps. But the lessons learned, there's things like people gave typically on the last day. They gave on the last day. People also like to be the one that would put you over the top. So that means that they didn't want to give 200 up front, but they said, hey, if you're coming down the stretch and you need an additional up to 200, 250, or whatever that number is, call me and then I'll help put you over the top. Right. And that's really cool too. People kind of like to be the championship contributor. I found that to be a common theme amongst people who are giving. So I appreciate your time. If you want more information from me, follow me on Twitter at Zach D. Middleton, or you can check out the link tree that's available in the bio. This also the list of what you see right here is Grace to Cultivate, and these are all of the different social media platforms that we're on under the banner Grace to Cultivate. I just also got a fanbase.com account as well, and so but check us out at gracetocultivate.com. I appreciate your time. I do believe that there's grace to cultivate. Be encouraged.